You're listening to the Cheryl Lacey Show, where curiosity meets courage. And joining us now is Mike Holt, our common law expert. And an interesting document is surfacing again. Its title is Australia, the Concealed Colony. And it raises all manner of issues around our governance in Australia. Mike, welcome to the show, and thank you for discussing this with us.
Good morning, and thank you.
Now, tell us, this document, Australia, the Concealed Colony, it's a book, isn't it?
It's a PDF.
Right, because there are a number of books, a little bit of homework I've done on Amazon. There is a book with that same title. I was wondering if it was the same one.
Could be.
Yes.
I only have the PDF, but there probably is a book as well.
Right, so it's readily available for people to acquire online. Just very quickly, what is this document about?
Basically, it explains how the government has morphed from being a Commonwealth of Australia under the Crown, which was established in 1901 when we became a federation, and the 6 colonies were combined to create one Australian federation. But of course, when that happened, we were still a British colony. They just gave the states and the federation the ability to self-govern. But we still were under the government, British government.
So that was in 1901. Now, leading up to that constitution where Australians, or soon-to-be Australians, voted for that constitution for us to become federated, my understanding is that there were only around 10% of people who actually voted at the time, because it was landowners and predominantly men who could vote.
Correct.
So
the vote at that stage.
Sorry?
Women didn't have the vote at that stage.
Not federally. In South Australia, the South Australian colony, they did, but federally, no. Now, this document went through a series of drafts, and when it went over to the United Kingdom, or to Britain, there were amendments made. Again, is it fair to suggest that those amendments weren't shared by the people once again? So before we even go into this document in detail, is it fair to say that we really don't know what constitution was signed?
Well, we know which one was signed, and that's the one that we refer to today. But the original one, which the people voted on in a referendum, it wasn't the original one, because when it went to the United Kingdom Parliament, they added a whole bunch of stuff in there to continue the Crown dominance over their colony. So we had a Governor-General who was a representative of the Crown, and that Governor-General came over and set up the ministries, and basically he governed the country, and he appointed state governors, and they set up this whole system. Now, the problem was, in 1919, Billy Hughes, the then Labor Prime Minister, signed Australia up to the League of Nations. Now, there was no vote taken on this. Hughes just decided he was going to do it. And effectively what that did, it cut off the relationship between Australia and the Crown. And so normally when something like that happens, when you're changing the whole political structure of a country, you also have to change the legal structure. And that included the laws and the Constitution. But that never happened. They were going to, but they never actually did it.
So he did that without the authority or approval of the Australian people. On what grounds did he believe that was the right thing to do? And he also signed us up to the International Labour Organisation at around about the same time, yes?
Mm.
So why did he do it?
I have my own theory about this. I believe that he was a communist. He may not have realised it, but he was certainly enacting the communist goals of world government. And Australia becoming basically a republic without the legal backing was the start of all of our problems. Now, you and I have discussed before that it started even earlier when the second Governor-General came over, but that was only just, dipping their toes in the water, so to speak. It was in 1919 when we really changed things around.
So for our listeners, this document, it's going to step them through an explanation of this, and there is a timeline there as well that provides other detail as to the changes in governance and the implications of that. There is action on foot, though, about this, and this has been going for at least this document, obviously with the timeline, but there are letters to, for example, then Prime Minister John Howard and then Opposition Leader Kim Beazley about all of this, and that's going back to the 1990s, late 1990s. This has been going on for a long time. The document clearly, if accurate, is still relevant. What are the actions that need to happen, and how is that taking place?
Well, people have written to the British Parliament seeking to change the diplomatic and constitutional arrangements. And the British Parliament has actually come back and said, well, if you send a delegation over here, we will cancel the contract with Australia, which is the Constitution. But nobody's actually done it. So we're planning to do so. So
going over to speak with the British government, it's because they are the only ones that can affect change relative to the Constitution Act, not here in Australia. So the politicians effectively can just remain silent on this because they know they can't act anyway. Would that be a fair assumption?
That would be a part of the fair assumption. Basically, they're not saying anything because they know that they are acting illegally and unconstitutionally, and they don't want us to know, do they?
So why would they continue? What's in it for them to act, as you say, illegally?
Oh, human nature, greed and power.
So they have power over the people by enacting legislation that's essentially unlawful, and therefore there is no accountability when things go wrong?
Correct. And what happened was, now the states have assumed primacy, and the federal government basically has been neutered. It's the states that call the tune now.
Which makes sense, and we have discussed this briefly, hence the National Cabinet during COVID, hence COAG. Interestingly, the Royal Commission as well. You've got New South Wales, Western Australia, and I believe South Australia have put in letters patent for the Royal Commission. Not the other three states, interestingly, as yet. So is it a federal Royal Commission, or does the federal government need the states to jump on board as well so that it can actually be done? There's all sorts of questions that need to be asked, and where the legitimacy lies, and where, if this is true, where the illegal actions begin or actually have never stopped.
You have to ask yourself this first question. Who provides who provides the document to start a Royal Commission?
It should be the Governor-General.
Yes, yeah. Acting for the Crown.
Yes. So therefore it goes back to British rule.
Right. But we are not actually associated with England anymore, because since 1919 we became a sovereign state, a sovereign country.
Well, that's what this
have the laws.
Well, that's what this document says. How can we be part of an international organisation without Britain's permission? If Britain is the one that had to essentially, as you've said now, approve our departure from their governance, how did Billy Hughes do that in the first place? And was that legal?
I don't believe it was, but I can't speak for Billy Hughes' thought processes at the time. But, I mean, if you look at what he did, it doesn't look like he went to the Crown and said, oh, we're going to separate from you. He just went ahead and joined the League of Nations and signed the Treaty of Versailles.
I'm going to ask the question again in a different way. Were his actions legal or not?
No, I don't think so.
So then essentially what he signed up isn't something that's been signed up then?
Well, basically, he just did it unilaterally. Let me read something out here, a declaration issued by the Inter-Imperial Relations Committee at the 1926 Imperial Conference. It says, there is, however, one most important element in it, which, from a strictly constitutional point of view, has now, as regards all vital matters, reached its full development. We refer to the group of self-governing communities composed of Great Britain and the Dominions. Now, the Dominions, of course, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Canada, and their position of mutual relation may be readily defined. They are autonomous communities within the British Empire, equal in status, in no way subordinate one to another in any respect of their domestic or external affairs, though united by a common allegiance to the Crown and freely associated as members of the British Commonwealth of Nations. The only problem was, when Australia signed up to the League of Nations, we severed that.
So there would be constitutional lawyers in Australia that have researched this and would be backing you in these claims.
Yeah, look, I only know of one constitutional lawyer, Zimmerman. He's over in Western Australia, and he's an old fellow now, and I don't know what his thoughts are on this or whether he's even read this, but he'd be the only constitutional lawyer I know of, and he's not doing anything about it.
So there are, you mentioned earlier as well that there are people who are prepared to go to Britain because Britain has said, by all means, come over and we will deal with this. So you have seen those documents and you've seen the invite from Britain?
Personally, no, but the team that I work with, our leader has, and one of the other things that we also need to do, because we're signed up to the League of Nations, which eventually became the United Nations, we also have to go to the United Nations and address the United Nations about this lack of legal support in our country. And we're going to petition the UN to change our legal standing so that we can create an interim government and then call a series of constitutional congresses to discuss our next steps to become an actual sovereign nation under the guidance and governance of the people, not political parties.
So why do we need the UN's assistance in this if we are already independent based on Billy Hughes signing that document, if that is legal, and Britain is saying, off you go, as long as you come over here, we will help you out and you will be independent. Why do we need the UN's endorsement? And what sort of endorsement and support would we be seeking?
Well, first of all, we're bound to the UN through the what do you call
the Charter?
The Charter, and also by other
three main charters in particular, but yes.
Yeah, we've signed up a whole bunch of them. But the Statute of Westminster Act, 1931, was passed by the United Kingdom Parliament some 12 years after Australia had become independent. So, by virtue of the terms of the Covenant of the League of Nations, Britain could no longer validly enact legislation designed for application within and to affect the internal affairs of a sovereign Australia, a foundation member state of the League. So, the problem there is that once we became a foundation member of the League, we never actually ratified the legal changes either, legal and political changes. So we still stayed under the constitution of the British Parliament, but without any authority.
So what you're saying is that there is a very clear distinction between international law and British law when it comes to Australia's position. And international law takes precedent, they're the top of the wazza, and British law is secondary.
Well, British law really shouldn't even exist. And by Section 44 of the Constitution, if we're still going to rely on the Constitution, none of the politicians should be sitting in our Parliament because they are all serving an international master registered in the United States as a corporation.
So, for our listeners, where do they get this document and how do they start to unpack it, and who do they contact if you're looking for further support?
First of all, you can go on to cirnow.com.au, and under downloads, you'll be able to download Australia, the Concealed Colony. It's a PDF, and you can download it. It's about 464 pages, but the first 20 pages really are the essential reading. The rest of it is the annexures, which explain a whole lot of questions that you would get as you're reading this document.
And then once people have got hold of this, our listeners are reading this document, they can certainly reach out to you, Mike, for further explanations here. I'm still very curious as to how Billy Hughes got to do what he did if he was under British rule and it was only them who could decide how Australia operated and functioned. So can you follow that up for me and come back to me?
I will, yeah.
Fantastic, that would be great. Once again, always good to have you on the show and learning about the history of Australia. All of this aside, though, Mike, you've got to really look at some of the other opportunities that you're providing, and that is a whole new look at the way our country is governed because of our party system, and we're seeing more and more just how much that is ineffectual and dangerous for the Australian people. So great to have you on the show again. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was Mike Holt, our common law and constitutional conversationalist about the Australian colony, as he calls it, according to this document, and something that you might like to follow up. We're listening to the Cheryl Lacey Show, where curiosity meets courage.